What role is gas going to play in our energy strategy? Is that a solution if we don't have nuclear power, if we're determined to self-harm and close down coal? Could gas be that backup? Because we are sitting on plenty of gas reserves. Some suggest hundreds of years' worth of gas reserves.
Well, gas is great, and gas can provide reliable power. There's a key problem with gas. One key issue. When it's in the ground, it can't generate power. You've actually got to bring it up from under the surface for it to be any kind of solution. And of course, in Victoria, not only did Victoria ban fracking in their state, they've actually made it part of their constitution to not have fracking. So it's in the Victoria's constitution now. It's habeas corpus, equality before the law, and no fracking. that's the principle on which Victoria is being destroyed right now. They're losing businesses. We saw this week businesses are fleeing Victoria. It was the manufacturing heartland of our nation. It's just so sad to see it be destroyed before our eyes. And so we've got to develop our gas. But even then, I would say it's important about how expensive that gas is. So gas prices now in Australia are typically over $10 a gigajoule. The brown coal in the Latrobe Valley can be mined for 50 cents a gigajoule, a 20th of the price. And this is the detail that unfortunately gets missed a lot in our superficial discussion on energy, that people don't understand that just switching to different technologies can have enormous impacts on how much it costs for you to pay for your electricity. And of course, in the case of a state like Victoria, how much factories pay. And if the factories aren't competitive, if we can't get cheap energy prices, we will lose those manufacturing jobs. They'll go overseas and we'll just have to import more things from China.
And the sad thing is, in this state, there really isn't much of an option for voters, because we went to the last state election with the Liberal opposition having emission targets that were bolder than the Albanese government. They have completely signed up to this net zero madness. So, Matt Canavan, what is the solution for Victorians? I know you up in Queensland look down here and mock us sometimes, but I think most Victorians are sensible. We are just let down by our politicians.
Well, look, it's happening all around the country, and perhaps the most dispiriting thing about this is the lack of leadership from those that should be leaders. Our politicians have become spineless cowards in the last few years. They just follow polls. They do a poll on energy and let that decide what their policy should be. But it's about time we do demand some leadership from our elected representatives, and that we stop telling lies to the Australian people. I mean, I can tell you right now, most of the politicians that have signed up to this net zero madness know that it's a big fat lie. They know there's no way of delivering net zero emissions. They just want to protect, they think it's a way of protecting their jobs. They think, these politicians, these spineless politicians think that they need to parrot this net zero nonsense because it will help them stay in a job. Now, I don't think that's my job. I don't think it's the job of your elected representatives to put their jobs first. They should be putting their country first, their state first, and they should have the guts to actually tell the Australian people the truth. And we're not being told the truth right now. You should demand better. You should hold these politicians to account, because they're totally, our whole political class is failing this country and it's being destroyed before our eyes.
Well, we are being lied to, because we are told over and over again that renewables are cheaper. Renewables are cheaper. And I think if you polled Australians, they would repeat that, because they have heard that lie so many times. But as we have seen with the experience overseas and even locally, when you look at the total cost, Matt, renewables are not cheaper. They're not only unreliable, they are a very expensive option.
Well, there's been a relentless propaganda machine funded by a lot of the investors in the green energy space. A lot of those investors are foreign and overseas. Almost all of the equipment that's used to install renewable energy comes from overseas, is made in countries like China. And so there's a big campaign to repeat that message. There's no doubt that's had a big impact on people's views. But look, I just would remind people of the experience of the last year in Australian politics, and that does demonstrate the power of leadership. I kind of put a pale over all my colleagues just before, but I will make an exception for the likes of Jacinta Price and also Peter Dutton, who bravely last year stood up against The Voice, stood in opposition to it, despite the fact that at the time, because people had been fed this propaganda, at the time, over 60% of Australians supported the voice. But when those politicians, when Peter Dutton, when Jacinta Price showed leadership, within just a matter of months, those polls had completely turned around. And there's no reason with an issue as salient as energy prices and the cost of living that a similar thing won't happen. Courage is contagious. And I do think the first time that a political leader in this country has that courage on energy policy, they will be rewarded, because I believe in the common sense of the Australian people. We should be a lucky nation, but we are not making our own luck right now by making very poor decisions on energy policy.